The frozen empire. The blizzard outside Vincent Blackwood's 42nd floor office perfectly matched the ice in his veins. Chicago's skyline disappeared behind sheets of snow, while he sat motionless behind his obsidian desk, watching 23. People packed their belongings into cardboard boxes. Christmas Eve meant nothing to him, just another Tuesday in his empire of silicon and steel. "Mr. Blackwood," Jennifer Martinez whispered, her voice cracking as she clutched a photo of her twin daughters. "Please, it's Christmas Eve. Can't this wait until after the holidays?" Vincent's steel-grey eyes never left his computer screen, where Blackwood Industries' stock price climbed steadily upward. The marketing campaign for their new AI platform had failed to meet projections by 2%, a rounding error to most, but weakness to him. "Failure doesn't recognize holidays, Ms. Martinez," he said, his voice carrying the warmth of Arctic wind. "Neither do I. Security will escort you out." The woman's sob echoed off the floor-to-ceiling windows as guards appeared, their presence as inevitable as winter itself. One by one, his former employees filed past his desk, some angry, others broken, all afraid to meet his gaze. Vincent had perfected the art of being untouchable. At 34, he commanded a $12 billion empire built from code and calculated cruelty. His charcoal suits were armor, his platinum watch a crown, his marble expression a fortress that had never been breached. The tech world whispered his name in boardrooms from Silicon Valley to Seoul, always in hushed tones reserved for dangerous men. As the last employee disappeared into the elevator, Marcus Webb slipped through the office doors. His assistant, the only person Vincent trusted, moved like smoke across the marble floor, his usually perfect composure showing hairline cracks. "The board is asking questions," Marcus said quietly. 3 mass firings in 6 months. They're worried about public relations. Let them worry, Vincent replied, finally looking up from his screen. "Fear keeps them honest." "And what keeps you honest?" The question should have been impertinent, but Marcus had earned the right to speak freely. They'd built this empire together from Vincent's dorm room at MIT, surviving hostile takeovers and betrayals that would have destroyed weaker men. Vincent stood, moving to the window where the blizzard painted Chicago in shades of gray and white. 42 stories below, the city struggled against nature's assault. Cars abandoned on frozen highways, families huddled in darkened apartments, humanity reduced to its most basic need for warmth. "Nothing," he answered finally. "Honesty is just another weakness waiting to be exploited." But as he spoke those words, movement in the building's courtyard caught his attention. Through the swirling snow, a figure in a red coat moved between the security guard's station and the lobby entrance, carrying steaming containers that glowed like beacons in the storm. Vincent watched, mesmerized, as the mysterious woman handed hot soup to grateful guards, her smile visible even from his aerial perch. For the first time in years, Vincent Blackwood felt something stir in the frozen wasteland of his chest. Something dangerous, something that felt almost like curiosity about another human being. The warmth in Winter Vincent's Bentley cut through the snowy streets like a blade, its GPS leading him to Chicago's forgotten South Side. The address had taken 3 private investigators to find. The mysterious woman from his building's courtyard wasn't listed in any database, didn't exist on social media, lived like a ghost in the modern world. Haven's heart occupied a converted warehouse on Ashland Avenue, its brick walls scarred by decades of Chicago winters. Through frost-covered windows, Vincent glimpsed warm light and moving shadows. He sat in his heated car for 20 minutes, watching people stream in and out. Elderly men with weathered faces, mothers carrying sleepy children, teenagers whose eyes held too much knowledge of the world's cruelties. Inside, the space thrummed with organized chaos. Folding tables groaned under donated food while volunteers ladled soup into endless bowls. Children drew pictures with broken crayons while their parents waited in line, dignity intact despite their circumstances, and there, orchestrating the beautiful madness, was the woman in red. "Iris!" someone called, and she turned with a smile that could power the entire building. Vincent studied her face in the fluorescent light. Sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of dark honey, skin that spoke of mixed heritage. She moved with purpose, touching shoulders, remembering names, treating each person like they mattered. "You're not here for the soup," she said suddenly, appearing beside his table like magic. Up close, he could see the thin scar running along. Her left temple, usually hidden by carefully arranged dark hair. "How do you know?" "Armani suit, Rolex. The way you're studying everyone like specimens in a lab." Iris sat across from him, her presence filling the space between them. "Plus, you're Vincent Blackwood. Your picture's in Forbes often enough. And you're Iris Delacroix." Her smile faltered for just a moment. "Good detectives. What do you want?" "To understand why you were at my building last night. The security guards work 12-hour shifts in the cold. Someone should care whether they eat." She studied his face with curious intensity. "Why does that bother you?" Vincent found himself speechless. A rare occurrence. In his world, every action served a purpose, advanced an agenda. Pure kindness was a foreign concept. "Tell me about this place," he said instead. Iris gestured around the bustling space. "Haven's Heart feeds 200 people daily, provides job training, offers counseling. We're not changing the world, just making it slightly less cold for the people everyone else forgets." "And you run it?" "I volunteer here." Something flickered across her face. Pain, quickly hidden. "It's penance, I suppose." The word hung between them like a bridge neither expected to cross. Vincent recognized guilt when he saw it. He carried enough of his own. "What are you paying penance for?" Iris's hands stilled on the table. For a long moment she watched an elderly man teaching a young boy to play chess near the window. 3 years ago, I was driving home from my teaching job, late for dinner with my parents and my little brother Jamie. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. It was raining, and I was texting, just for a second, about being late. When I looked up, the red light was there, and I couldn't stop in time. Vincent's chest tightened, recognizing the weight of survivor's guilt. "My family was in the other car," Iris continued. "They were coming to surprise me at school. Mom, Dad, 8-year-old Jamie, who drew me pictures every day and believed his big sister could do anything." Tears tracked down her cheeks, but her voice remained steady. "The doctors said they died instantly. I walked away with just this scar, and the knowledge that I'd destroyed the only people who ever truly loved me." The chess game continued in the background, while Vincent processed her confession. He understood now, the volunteering, the careful anonymity, the way she treated strangers like family. "So you save everyone else," he said quietly. "I try to. It doesn't bring them back, but maybe it means their deaths weren't completely meaningless." Iris wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What about you, Vincent Blackwood? What are you running from?" The question should have made him retreat behind familiar walls. Instead, he found himself answering everything. Cracks in the ice Marcus web discovered Vincent's secret on a Tuesday morning when the quarterly reports didn't add up. Hidden in the labyrinth of Blackwood Industries' financial statements was a pattern of anonymous donations, large ones, flowing to a small community center on Chicago's South Side. "Haven's Heart," Marcus said, settling into the leather chair across from Vincent's desk. "Interesting name for a tax write-off." Vincent didn't look up from his tablet, where he was reviewing merger documents. "Every corporation needs charitable deductions. Most corporations don't hide their philanthropy. Usually, they want the publicity." Marcus leaned forward, his dark eyes reflecting genuine concern. "Vincent, what's going on?" For 2 weeks, Vincent had been living a double life. Days belonged to his empire, hostile board meetings, calculated acquisitions, the careful orchestration of corporate warfare. But evenings drew him south to Haven's Heart, where Iris Delacroix was teaching him the complicated art of being human again. He'd started small, new industrial stoves for the kitchen, fresh paint for the children's area, then bigger things. A computer lab, job training programs, a legal aid clinic, each donation funneled through shell companies, invisible to everyone except Marcus's forensic accounting skills. "She's changing you," Marcus said, and Vincent's head snapped up. "This woman, whoever she is. In 15 years of friendship, I've never seen you care about anything except market dominance and profit margins. Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through recent photos. "You smiled at Mrs. Patterson in the elevator yesterday. You haven't fired anyone in 2 weeks. You spent an hour discussing the weather with the janitor." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Either you've had a personality transplant or someone's gotten under your skin." That evening, Vincent found Iris in Haven's Heart's garden, a patch of green behind the building where she grew vegetables for the soup kitchen. Snow had given way to early spring, and she knelt among budding tomato plants, dirt under her fingernails, completely absorbed in coaxing life from soil. "You don't have to hide it," she said without looking up. "The donations, I know they're from you." Vincent froze halfway through the garden gate. "How?" "The amounts match your stock sells perfectly. Plus, you're not as invisible as you think." Iris sat back on her heels, studying his face. "The question is why? Guilt, tax benefits, some elaborate corporate strategy?" He moved closer, struck by how natural she looked, surrounded by growing things. In his world of glass and steel, everything was engineered, controlled. But Iris existed in organic spaces, soil and sunlight, mess and growth. "Maybe I wanted to. See what kindness looks like," he said. "And what have you learned? That it's terrifying." Vincent knelt beside her, his expensive suit forgotten. "In my world, generosity is weakness. Caring makes you vulnerable. Every person you trust is a potential knife in your back." Iris's dirt-stained hand found his. "What happened to you, Vincent? Who taught you that love was dangerous?" The question unlocked something he'd buried for years. "My father. Richard Blackwood built his fortune by destroying competitors and discarding anyone who showed weakness. When I was 12, he fired my piano teacher, a woman I adored, because she said I had artistic talent. Art is for dreamers, he told me. Dreamers starve." "Is that why you became colder than him?" "I became what the world demanded." Vincent's voice was barely audible. After father died, every board meeting became a war zone. Every friend revealed themselves as an enemy. Every woman saw dollar signs instead of a person. I learned that caring was a luxury I couldn't afford. Iris squeezed his hand, her touch warm against his skin. "But you're here now. Caring about this place, these people, caring about me." The admission hung between them like spring air, fresh and dangerous. Vincent looked at their joined hands, dirt and designer watch, 2 worlds touching. "That's what terrifies me most," he whispered, "because caring about you feels like stepping off a cliff without knowing if there's ground below." In the distance, Marcus Webb sat in his car, watching through telephoto lens as the most powerful man he knew knelt in dirt beside a woman who had somehow cracked his armor. He thought about loyalty, friendship, and the thin line between protecting someone and enabling their destruction. Tomorrow, he would make the phone call that would change everything. Part 4. The Avalanche. Helena Cross moved through Vincent's boardroom, like a predator scenting blood. Platinum blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon, Louboutin heels clicking against marble floors. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a corporate war. "Gentlemen," she addressed, "the board of directors, though her glacier blue eyes never left Vincent's face. "I come bearing gifts." Vincent's jaw tightened as she distributed photographs around the mahogany table. Images of him at Haven's Heart, kneeling in dirt beside Iris, holding her hand like a lovesick teenager. The telephoto lens had captured every vulnerable moment. "Our unshakable CEO has discovered charity work," Helena continued, her voice dripping honey over poison. "How heartwarming. Of course, one might wonder about the wisdom of associating with convicted criminals." Board member Richard Morrison frowned at his photo. Convicted of what? Helena's smile could have frozen champagne. "Vehicular manslaughter. 3 counts. Iris Delacroix killed her own family in a drunk driving incident 3 years ago, served 18 months in minimum security, and now she's manipulating Chicago's most eligible billionaire. Classic con artist behavior." "That's not," Vincent began, but Helena cut him off. "The media will have this story by evening. Billionaire's bleeding heart, Vincent Blackwood's dangerous liaison with killer. Your stock will crash, your reputation will crumble, and Blackwood Industries will become acquisition ready." "My acquisition." Vincent stood slowly, his grey eyes turning to winter steel. "Get out." "Oh, I will, but first let me share the beautiful irony." Helena moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gesturing toward the city below. "While you were playing savior, I've been quietly purchasing Blackwood stock through shell companies. I now own 37% of your empire. One more scandal, one vote of no confidence, and I'll finally have what should have been mine all along." The room fell silent except for the whisper of air conditioning and the distant hum of Chicago traffic. Vincent's board members, men he'd trusted, worked, with built fortunes alongside, studied their photographs with calculating expressions. In the corporate world, vulnerability was a disease that spread through exposure. "There is, however, a solution," Helena continued. "End this ridiculous charity phase. Fire the girl, close her little soup kitchen, and return to being the Vincent Blackwood we all know and fear. Do that and I'll kill the story." "Refuse," she shrugged elegantly. "Well, you've always been better at chess than sentiment." That afternoon, Vincent found Iris exactly where he expected, in Haven's Heart's kitchen, preparing dinner for 200 people. She moved with practiced efficiency, her hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, completely absorbed in the simple act of feeding those who needed it most. "You heard?" she said without turning around, recognizing his footsteps. "The story breaks in 3 hours." Iris ladled soup into containers, her hands steady despite the tremor in her voice. "I was never drunk that night. The toxicology report proved it, but Helena Cross's version sells better papers. Why didn't you tell me about the conviction?" "Because I knew you'd look at me differently." She finally turned, her honey-colored eyes bright with unshed tears. "Everyone does. Prison changes you, even minimum security. You learn to make yourself small, invisible, unworthy of good things." Vincent moved closer, studying her face. The scar, the pain, the fierce determination to keep serving others despite knowing the world would judge her forever. "Helena's given me a choice," he said quietly. "You or my empire." "Then there's no choice at all." Iris's smile was heartbreaking in its acceptance. "You built that company from nothing. You employ thousands of people. You can't throw it all away for someone like me. Someone like you, broken, guilty, carrying ghosts wherever I go." Outside, news vans were already gathering, their satellite dishes raised like antennae, searching for signals of human weakness. Vincent watched reporters checking their equipment, preparing to broadcast his private moments to the world. In 6 hours, Helena Cross would own his company, his reputation would be in ruins, and the woman who'd taught him to feel would disappear, back into the shadows where damaged people learned to hide, unless he chose to fall. Thaw and renewal judge Patricia Winters had presided over family court for 32 years, long enough to recognize the difference between performance and genuine transformation. The man standing before her bench bore little resemblance to the corporate shark described in newspaper headlines. Vincent Blackwood wore a simple navy suit instead of his usual armor-like charcoal. His hair, once slicked to perfection, showed honest dishevelment, but most telling were his eyes, grey as winter sky, but warm now, alive with something that looked remarkably like hope. "Mr. Blackwood," Judge Winters began, adjusting her reading. "Glasses. You're requesting guardianship of Haven's Heart Community Center, along with liquidation of 60% of your personal assets to establish an endowment fund. This is unprecedented." "Yes, Your Honor." "You understand this will cost you approximately $7 billion? "I understand." In the gallery behind him, Iris sat between Marcus Webb and a handful of Haven's Heart volunteers. She'd tried to disappear after Helena's story broke, packed her few belongings, written resignation letters, prepared to vanish into another city where her face wouldn't be recognized. But Vincent had found her at the bus station, car keys in one hand, a manila folder in the other. "You want to run because you think you're not worth fighting for," he'd said, snow beginning to fall around them. "But you saved me, Iris. You took a man who'd forgotten how to be human and taught him that caring isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes strength meaningful." Helena Cross sat in the front row, her perfect composure cracking like ice in spring. She'd won the corporate war but lost something more valuable, the satisfaction of destroying Vincent completely. He'd chosen to fall, but somehow turned the descent into flight. "The defendant corporation Blackwood Industries," Judge Winters continued, "is being dissolved by shareholder vote, with assets distributed according to the founder's wishes. Ms. Cross, as majority shareholder, you'll receive the tech patents and corporate infrastructure. But the company's heart, its charitable foundation, its community investments, its soul, if you will, those belong to Mr. Blackwood." Helena's lips pressed into a thin line. She'd gained an empire, but inherited a hollow shell. "The establishment of the Delacroix Blackwood Foundation is approved," the judge declared. "Haven's Heart will continue operations under permanent endowment. Court adjourned." As the gavel fell, Iris felt Vincent's hand find hers. 3 months ago, he'd been untouchable, a man who inspired fear in boardrooms across 3 continents. Now he was choosing love over power, connection over control. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited like vultures, but Vincent walked past them without a glance. His world had contracted to the woman beside him, the volunteers who'd become family, the simple miracle of feeding people who needed it most. "Any regrets?" Iris asked as they descended the courthouse steps. Vincent considered the question seriously. Behind them, Helena emerged flanked by lawyers and bodyguards, already fielding phone calls about her new acquisition. Ahead lay uncertainty, a smaller apartment, a simpler life, the daily challenge of building something meaningful from ashes of his former empire. "I regret waiting so long to fall," he said finally. "I regret believing that power was more valuable than purpose." That evening, Haven's Heart buzzed with celebration. Children drew pictures of Vincent in a cape. Elderly chess players debated the wisdom of his sacrifice. Teenagers who'd learned job skills through his programs spoke of futures that seemed possible now. Iris found him in the garden, surrounded by spring's first growth. Tomato seedlings pushed through soil, reaching towards sunlight, with the faith that good things waited above ground. "You know what I learned about redemption," she said, settling beside him among the plants. "It's not about erasing the past or paying off some cosmic debt. It's about choosing every day to plant seeds instead of salt." Vincent's arms circled her waist, and for the first time in years, he felt complete. Not because his empire was gone or his wealth diminished, but because he'd finally learned the difference between having everything and having enough. Above them, Chicago's skyline glittered with the lights of Helena's new kingdom. But herein The garden, surrounded by growing things and the laughter of people who'd found home in each other's care, Vincent Blackwood had discovered something more valuable than dominion. He'd found his way back to human. In the distance, Marcus Webb watched, through Haven's Heart's windows, smiling at the sight of his oldest friend planting vegetables with dirt-stained hands. Tomorrow, he would start his new job, not as assistant to a corporate emperor, but as director of the foundation that would ensure places like this survived and thrived. Some falls, he reflected, were really just another way of learning to fly.